The television crackled to life in the dim, dusty living room, casting a cold, pale glow across the cluttered floor. The daily weather report droned on, the announcer's voice as flat and lifeless as always, filling the silence with his usual monotonous spiel.
Insert weather report. Clouds approaching. Rain is expected.
For a moment, the image glitched, a flicker of static. Then, the screen cut to a jumbled mess of strange symbols, codes flashing across the screen in a sickly green. Just as suddenly, the feed returned to normal, as if nothing had happened.
Insert weather report.
The voice repeated, this time slower, somehow hollow. The announcer's words continued, but something was off. A quick flash of an image, the smiling face of a child, frozen in a way that felt all wrong. It vanished almost immediately, replaced by a still frame of an unsettling figure, a face distorted beyond recognition, melting into the dark. Then a wail, a stretched, metallic scream that didn't belong in any broadcast. The weather report resumed, words fractured, almost nonsensical. The sentences stuttered and splintered, each broken part forming strange phrases as if trying to say something. First development logs, Project Temporal Link, Dr. Anant's introduction. The voice is calm, thoughtful, but underlined with a hint of excitement. Project Temporal Link represents the culmination of decades of scientific pursuit and unprecedented ambition. At its core, it's about transcending the boundaries of time itself, testing the limits of human communication, and reaching into the past and future through a controlled entanglement network. Imagine not just communicating across vast distances, but bridging timelines. That's the level of achievement we're aiming for. Interview with Dr. Anant's team members. 2 voices, one male and one female, exchange perspectives. They sound as if recalling the trials and triumphs with both pride and exhaustion. Male team member, getting here wasn't easy. We started with nothing but scraps of data from old quantum entanglement studies. It took what? 3 years just to figure out the stabilization issue? Female team member, 3 years and about a dozen sleepless nights a month at least. And it wasn't until last year we could transmit even a stable signal. But here we are. We've finally done it. Male team member, I still can't believe we're standing on the brink of something this revolutionary. Who knows what history, or the future, might tell us back. Dr. Harris's statement. Dr. Harris speaks with a bold, almost reckless confidence. Being part of this project, it's like witnessing a piece of history being written and knowing you're the one holding the pen. I can't wait to be the first to see it in action, to really experience the fruits of our work. This is what science was made for. Second development logs, Project Temporal Link, Dr. Anant's progress report. Dr. Anand speaks with a calm but unmistakable pride in his voice. We've officially transmitted the first signal to Dr. Harper and her team stationed all the way in Thailand. This isn't just a step forward, it's a breakthrough. Temporal Link is proving to be more than we ever envisioned. Dr. Harper's reaction, Dr. Harper, her voice buzzing with excitement, reflects on the astonishing success. It's unbelievable. The message from Dr. Anand reached me almost instantaneously, even though we're on opposite sides of the world. In that moment, I could hardly believe it. I was ready to celebrate with my team right then and there. Dr. Anant's brilliance made this moment possible. Dr. Anant's response. A modest tone follows Dr. Harper's praise. You give me too much credit, Dr. Harper. We wouldn't be here if not for everyone's dedication and hard work. This is a triumph for all of us. Third development logs, Project Temporal Link, Dr. Anant's progress report. Dr. Anand speaks with a calm but growing excitement in his voice. We've decided to attempt something unprecedented. We'll transmit data 20 years forward in time, with the hope that the future's Temporal Link satellite will still be functional. This isn't just an experiment, it's a potential leap forward for science. Dr. Harper's idea. Dr. Harper chimes in, her voice filled with enthusiasm. At first, we couldn't decide what data would be most meaningful to send. Then, the idea struck. Why not try human DNA? Specifically, a sequence related to white blood cells. If our transmission is successful, maybe we'll get insights back that could shape human immunity in unimaginable ways. Dr. Harris's reaction? Dr. Harris laughs softly, though there's an underlying eagerness. I'll admit, Harper, I wasn't expecting this angle, but I have to say, I'm on board with it. Dr. Anand's optimism, Dr. Anand, chuckling at first, then speaking with a new fervor. It's true, I was skeptical when I first heard the suggestion, but imagine it. If we can transmit DNA to the future, we might receive genetic data that could aid in developing new vaccines or even perfect gene editing techniques. This could change the course of human evolution. Dr. Harris's light-hearted response. Dr. Harris adds with a chuckle. Sounds like Dr. Anand's geeking out a bit, but hey, it's worth a shot. What could go wrong, right? Fourth development logs, Project Temporal Link, Dr. Harper's anticipation. Dr. Harper's voice carries an unmistakable sense of excitement. And so, the moment we've all been waiting for has finally arrived. Dr. Anand's report on the return signal. Dr. Anand, his tone serious but tinged with awe, recounts the breakthrough. 3 days after transmitting our data, we received a signal in response. We carefully filtered the transmission and compared its spectrum with our original signal. Certain segments had been altered. It appears that the data we sent has been modified. Dr. Harris's astonishment. Dr. Harris laughs in disbelief, the reality of their achievements sinking in. Who would have thought that time-crossing communication could actually be real? Dr. Anand's observations on the audio signal. Dr. Anand's voice lowers, as if he's contemplating the implications. One more thing. We discovered that the return signal was longer than what we originally sent. It seems to contain an audio transmission of some kind. Female team member's unease. A female team member, her voice shaken, tries to explain. We've extracted the audio, but what we heard, it was male team member's decision. A male team member cuts in, sounding equally unnerved. Let's just play it. It'll be easier for everyone to understand. The sound of a button being pressed follows. Fifth development logs, Project Temporal Link, security guard's testimony. The guard fumbles slightly before beginning, as though unsure whether to start. Can I speak now? Oh, I can? Okay. He clears his throat, his voice carrying a hint of unease. So, the past 2 or 3 days, I've noticed something odd with the security cameras. They keep picking up strange figures around the facility. It's hard to describe. These things look kind of human, but they're tall, thin, and their bodies seem to create some sort of interference. Whatever they are, they mess with the camera feed, like there's a distortion field around them. I can't get a clear image. 1 second, they're there, and the next, poof, gone. It's like nothing was ever there. Security guard's follow-up statement. The guard pauses, taking a breath as he tries to make sense of it all. It's weird, honestly. I checked every single camera in the facility, but there's no technical issue. We've had signal interference here before, sure, but nothing at this level, where the images are like that. I don't really know how to explain it. Team member's reaction. One of the male team members rubs his temples, frustration and fear evident in his tone. To be honest, that sound, it's still echoing in my head. And now this footage? I can't even think about doing overtime anymore. No way. Female team member's observation. She speaks in a low voice, as though afraid of what her words might imply. After we got that video footage, I don't know if it's just us being paranoid, but the sound from that footage, it sounds almost identical to the signal we decoded earlier. Like, nearly the same frequency and pitch. Sixth development logs, Project Temporal Link, Dr. Harris's assessment. Dr. Harris, with a composed yet determined tone, shares his thoughts. I've heard the reports from my team. Yeah, it sounds eerie, like something straight out of a horror movie. But that's beside the point. Signal interference is normal. What we need to focus on now is finding ways to deepen our connections with alternate timelines. Dr. Anand's recollection. Dr. Anand speaks thoughtfully, his voice laced with a sense of hesitation. Dr. Harris brought up the idea of reactivating temporal link, but this time, it's a wild proposition. I once knew a doctor, a colleague, who studied quantum entanglement extensively. He discovered a way to transform every molecule in the body into pure data, then send that data through particles to reassemble at a distant location. Basically, teleportation. Dr. Harris's vision. Excitement builds in Dr. Harris's voice as he explores the possibilities. Imagine it, we've found a way to send information to other timelines. We know how to convert our physical forms into data, then rebuild them somewhere else. Why don't we try it? Why not bring it all together? Dr. Anand's caution. Dr. Anand responds, a mix of intrigue and wariness in his tone. That's a crazy and extremely dangerous idea. Our experiment is still in development, and we all know how that Dr. S teleportation experiments ended. Less than ideally. We should gather more information before diving in. 7th Development Logs, Project Temporal Link, Dr. Anand's frustration. Dr. Anand speaks, his disbelief evident in his tone. I can't believe it. Dr. Harris actually pitched the idea to our investors, and they approved it. They're convinced it'll bring enormous profits. Unbelievable. Are they really only seeing dollar signs in everything we do? Dr. Anand's reflection. He sighs deeply, his voice taking on a more subdued tone. Sorry, I just lost my cool for a moment there. But, honestly, we're still in the data collection phase. I don't want us to rush this, but it's out of our hands now. They've already increased funding and are pushing us forward to continue research on human teleportation. Dr. Harris's enthusiasm. Dr. Harris, brimming with excitement, can barely contain his eagerness. I'm thrilled to finally get to work on this. Just imagine how incredible it'll be if we succeed. Dr. Harper's concern. Dr. Harper responds with a cautious tone, the weight of her words evident. Yes, it's great that the project is bringing in funding, but jumping straight into human teleportation, it feels a bit reckless. 8th Development Logs, Project Temporal Link, Security Guard's account. The security guard at the research center begins, his voice carrying a mix of bewilderment and lingering fear. It's strange. The other night, I met up with an old friend who works as a guard over at the university on the city's outskirts. Usually, we just talk shop and grab a few drinks at a bar nearby. Oh, right, you want me to get to the point. So, I told him about the weird footage we captured at the center, how something tall and shadowy seemed to roam around before vanishing, like it was never there in the first place. After I finished, I even showed him the footage. Security guard suspicion. He continues, lowering his voice as if recalling the scene brings back his own unease. Would you believe it? Right after he watched it, his face went pale as a sheet. That moment, I knew for sure. He knows something. There's no way he didn't recognize it. The guard's friend's reaction? The guard describes his friend's unusual response, his tone thick with tension. My friend just sat there, silent. Then, he reached into his pocket, fumbling around, and finally sent me a video. Watch it, he told me, looking dead serious. And let me tell you, my heart nearly stopped. The video opens with a security camera view of a deserted street in the middle of the night, flanked by crumbling buildings. A woman walks hurriedly down the street, glancing over her shoulder, her footsteps echoing in the quiet. Suddenly, from nowhere, a tall, gray figure materializes in front of her, as if stepping through a tear in reality itself. She screams, frozen in terror, while the figure lets out a piercing howl and lunges at her, mouth stretching unnaturally wide. In an instant, she vanishes into its form. The entity roars, a sound that seems to distort the camera's audio. The feed erupts in static, only to restore itself moments later, The street now empty, the figure gone as if it had never been. Ninth development logs, Project Temporal Link, security guard's observation. The guard speaks again, his tone carrying a sense of unease mixed with confusion. One more strange thing I noticed, the timestamp on the footage. It's missing 5 seconds. I mean, let's say it was 23 hours, 30 minutes, and 15 seconds when that thing appeared and, took her. By the time it screamed and vanished, the clock read 23 hours, 30 minutes, and 20 seconds. But then it suddenly jumped back to 23 hours, 30 minutes, and 16 seconds, like those 5 seconds never happened. Security guard's concern. He hesitates, his voice now laced with apprehension. I mean, it's not some kind of classified thing, right? I'm not going to get in trouble for this, am I? Male team member's response. A reassuring voice speaks nearby, calm and professional. Don't worry. This is just an interview. We need as much information as we can get. Female team member's assurance. Another voice, this time gentle yet firm, follows. And don't worry, we'll keep this strictly within the organization. We don't want anyone to panic unnecessarily, so please keep this confidential. Security guard's acknowledgement. The guard lets out a quiet sigh, replying in a resigned tone. Ah, okay. 10th development logs, Project Temporal Link, male team member's reflection. He sighs deeply, struggling to make sense of it all. We don't know for certain if these strange occurrences are a direct result of the temporal link. All we know is that they're happening around the times we've used this machine. And we can't keep lying to ourselves, thinking that the sounds we heard, the footage from the research center, the footage from the university, and those transmissions we've picked up are unrelated. I swear, it's the same thing, whatever it is. Female team member's investigation. Her voice has a sense of bewilderment as she recounts her findings. Yesterday, I went over to that university, asking around the neighborhood if anyone knew about a woman disappearing in the area. And guess what? Female team member's revelation. She pauses, letting the weight of her discovery settle before continuing. No, they had no idea. It's like nothing happened that night. And the oddest part? That wasn't even an abandoned building. It was a busy shopping district. It's as if that moment in time either never existed or wasn't even here. The only proof we have of any of it is this footage. Male team member's hypothesis. He speaks with a mixture of intrigue and dread, putting forth a theory. My guess? Whoever, or whatever, is responsible has the ability to erase time, or at least erase our perception of that time. There's a chance that the place where it was recorded might not even exist in our timeline. We could have pulled it here from another timeline entirely. Female team member's doubts. She takes a deep breath, still grappling with the absurdity of it all. None of this makes any sense. At first, I thought we were just connecting random dots, or maybe someone was trying to scare us, like some Scooby-Doo villain. But here we are, doing the impossible. So, really, what's one more supernatural phenomenon? 11th development logs, Project Temporal Link, male team member's dedication. He seems determined but wary. I'll compile all of the information and send it to the doctors. Not sure if they'll just brush it off as nonsense, though. They're already busy trying to get human trials for time travel approved. Still, I'll suggest that the temporal link might be connected to that thing. Female team member's insight. She chimes in thoughtfully. If we're going to include that thing in our project proposal, we should probably give it a name, don't you think? Male team member's naming attempt. He pauses, considering a fitting title. A creature that devours time. Chronophage, maybe? Female team member's amusement. She chuckles, giving him a playful look. Chronophage? Like Chronos and macrophage? Nice one. Male team member's response. He smirks, countering her tease. Think you've got a better name? Female team member's agreement. She laughs and shrugs. All right. Chronophage it is. 12th development logs, Project Temporal Link, Dr. Anant's research update. In his usual detailed tone, he reflects on their recent developments. The progress on the teleportation device, integrated with the temporal link, continues smoothly. Recently, we attempted to send blueprints and calibration data to the future. Our plan involves converting biological data into electrical signals to transmit it across timelines, where it would reconstruct a biological form at that point in time. Dr. Harper's observations, she seems both intrigued and slightly unsettled. We've made several attempts to communicate with individuals in the future. It seems to go smoothly, but there's something odd. They avoid revealing their identities. Dr. Harper's biological data note. With a hint of excitement, she adds an important update. Oh, almost forgot. The DNA data we received was sent to a biomolecular research facility for analysis and embryo cultivation. I'm hopeful. Perhaps we'll discover a key to future evolution. Dr. Anand's curiosity about chronophage. Dr. Anand speaks with a blend of skepticism and intrigue. Two of our team members approached me with footage and reports of strange occurrences over the past few days. They mentioned the possibility of, what did they call it? The chronophage. Adorable name. They suggested that the chronophage might have crossed into our timeline because it sensed our temporal disruptions. Initially, I dismissed it as nonsense, but considering what it's capable of, it's fascinating. I'd like to study it, examine its potential for biological time travel abilities. I know we're already overworked, but imagine the potential if we could control them. I'll send this to the main office for consideration. Security alert from TPL Research Center and State Security Office. An official broadcast crackles over the speakers, the tone grave and urgent. Attention all citizens. The Temporal Link Research Center, in collaboration with the State Security Office, advises heightened caution. Avoid isolated areas without surveillance. Should you encounter an entity resembling the following description: a tall, bipedal figure with ashen, deep eye sockets, deformed spinal cord, and gray skin. A form that looks human but is distinctly not human. Avoid all encounters and confrontations. If you see it or hear an unsettling, harmonic sound, run and hide immediately. Report any sightings to the nearest office. If it has already noticed you, may God be with you. 13th Development Logs, Project Temporal Link, female team members' observations on public reports. In a tone marked by both frustration and amusement, she recounts the recent flood of communications. In the past week, following the security advisory, we've received a fair number of emails and calls regarding sightings of the chronophage. Some people claim to have seen it crawling into empty spaces. Others called in just to report a feeling of being watched. And then there are those who only called to say their TV suddenly stopped working. Male team members' commentary on public reactions? He nods, adding a bit of dry humor to the mix. Yeah, it seems like now everyone thinks any odd event must be caused by that thing, which, to be fair, isn't impossible. Female team members' thoughts on the chronophage's appearances. She reflects, her voice laced with concern. It's almost impossible to predict its behavior. Its appearances have no set pattern. The only thing we know for sure is that whenever we activate the temporal link, it shows up somewhere. But exactly where? That's the mystery. Male team members' observations on chronophage-related anomalies. With a serious tone, he describes the strange phenomena they've observed during these encounters. Each time it appears, there's an eerie howling sound, disturbances in the electromagnetic field, and local time fluctuations. At first, we thought it wasn't actually connected to time, just capable of messing with digital timestamps. But recently, one of the recordings came from the metrology lab, where even the atomic clock registered a slight anomaly, something it shouldn't have. Female team member's idea for surveillance expansion, she considers a new but costly approach, her voice tinged with doubt. We're planning to install anomaly detectors around the city to track its appearances. But that would take an enormous budget, and if we did find it, how could we capture it without, well, being erased ourselves? Male team members' hypothesis on capturing the chronophage. With cautious optimism, he outlines a potential trap. We suspect it might have an affinity with electromagnetic fields. Plan B is to set up a trap using a Faraday cage. The basic idea is that it is a structure that blocks electromagnetic waves by redistributing electric charges on its surface. We'll transmit exact coordinates through the temporal link, latitude, longitude, date, and time, where we'll set up the cage. If it shows up, we'll activate it. Maybe, just maybe, the cage will disrupt its abilities. 14th Development Logs, Project Temporal Link. Dr. Anant's observation on the team's interest. With a wry tone, he reflects on the recent shift in the team's focus. Well, it seems like our team has taken on the role of a mystery-solving gang now. But I can't blame them. Deep down, I'm curious too. They suggested we try using Temporal Link, though we're all preoccupied with the teleportation project at the moment. Dr. Harris's teleportation progress update. In a factual tone, he reports on their teleportation experiments. The teleportation device has been fully installed. We started by sending organic matter. An apple, a small tree, a dog, and a chimpanzee, in that order. We monitored each one's condition over the week, and no issues were noted, at least with the apple and the tree. Dr. Harper's behavioral findings. Dr. Harper notes her observations on the animal subject's responses. After teleporting the dog and the chimpanzee to the receiving machine in the future and retrieving them a few seconds later, we observed that both animals displayed signs of mild distress. Behavioral checks showed no abnormalities, yet both animals reacted intensely to a specific sound frequency we recorded during the initial trials. Every time they heard it, they would scream in fear and run in circles. Dr. Harris's hypothesis on the sound frequency. In a straightforward tone, he provides a plausible explanation. Well, we do have a dog whistle that emits a frequency they're naturally averse to. It's possible the isolated frequency overlaps with a similar range. It's no surprise they dislike it. But so what? The experiment itself was a success. We're ready to take things to the next level. 15th Development Logs, Project Temporal Link. Dr. Anant's reaction to Harris's proposal. With a hint of disbelief, Dr. Anant recounts Harris's bold suggestion. There he goes again. Harris has proposed human trials for time travel. And guess what? He volunteered himself as the test subject. Dr. Harris's excitement about human trials. In an enthusiastic tone, he shares his eagerness for the experiment. The experiments have shown promising results, and I've been waiting for this moment for ages. Just imagine, the first human to travel through time. It's a feat far beyond even walking on the moon. Dr. Harper's concern and reluctance. With a mixture of caution and acceptance, she reflects on the decision. This is the most reckless choice we've ever faced. We've never tried anything like this with a human. During our last trials with the chimpanzee, we double-checked everything to avoid any margin of error, even preventing a single fly from entering the teleportation device. But the results do show it works, and eventually, we'll have to send someone. I suppose it's a relief someone volunteered. Maybe. Dr. Anant's strategy adjustment. In a determined tone, he describes a shift in priorities. I've asked the team to put our monster trapping project on hold and focus on establishing a connection with the future. We're working to calibrate both the teleportation and temporal link with absolute precision, so when we send Dr. Harris, we can bring him back intact, not as some future-born meat pudding. Dr. Harris's final words before departure. With excitement and pride, he addresses the team. It's an honor to be a part of this trial. I'm thrilled beyond words. May we lead humanity forward. Wish me luck. Sixteenth Development Logs, Project Temporal Link. Recorded video from a computer camera. Dr. Anant's log, December 16, 1991, 4:40 p.m. In a calm, professional tone, he details the setup. We're now stationed in the teleportation testing center. Dr. Harris is suited up in the Faraday cage gear, standing by in the teleportation device, ready to proceed. Dr. Anant's update on the settings. He continues in a steady voice, explaining their coordination. The setup went smoothly. We've contacted the future team to inform them of Harris's arrival. We plan to bring him back within 20 seconds of our time. Though time there may pass differently, we've set a maximum of 24 hours to prevent errors. The video switches to a CCTV view, capturing a room full of scientists with Dr. Anant at the forefront. Dr. Anant's final call. With anticipation, He addresses Harris. We're starting the trial soon. Ready, Harris? Dr. Anand shouts. Dr. Harris's reply. With eagerness in his voice, he responds confidently. I was born ready, he calls back. Dr. Anand's countdown. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The press of a button follows. The machine doors close, a flash of light bursts forth, and the hum of the teleportation device fills the room. Lights flicker chaotically across the facility before everything falls silent. Dr. Anand's command. All right, Dr. Harper, start the countdown. Dr. Harper's countdown. In a clear, steady voice, she counts down. 20, 19, 18. Meanwhile, Dr. Anand types in data, toggling switches as the countdown continues. Dr. Harper's final countdown. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Dr. Anand's command to return Harris. In unison, he and Dr. Harper count 3, 2, 1 as they pull the lever. The machine roars once more, a blinding light flaring out before the room settles back to normalcy. All eyes fixate on the teleportation device. The machine doors creak open. A cloud of smoke billows out. But when it clears, the sight chills everyone to the core. Dr. Anand's frightened whisper. Dr. Harris, he stammers, his voice trembling with fear. Inside the machine stands a figure that is not Dr. Harris. A pale, elongated hand grips the doorway, pulling itself out of the too small space. Its head, hollow eye sockets, and a grotesque, endless mouth stares emptily around. In the dark void within its face, a single red light flickers, swiveling to observe the horrified faces of the scientists. A female team member, her voice shaking, points with wide eyes at the entity that now occupies Dr. Harris's place. Female scientist's reaction? What the hell? Her voice shakes, high-pitched, filled with disbelief and terror. She points, her finger trembling as it hovers towards the abomination now standing before them, its hollow eyes meeting hers. A male scientist's voice cuts in, shouting in terror as he realizes what they're facing. Male scientist's outburst. Chronophage, he yells. Dr. Anand, panicked but commanding, calls out orders as he bolts from the control station. Dr. Anand's command. Everyone, evacuate now. Dr. Harper, activate containment protocols, he shouts, sprinting, while Dr. Harper throws the emergency switch. Red emergency lights start flashing as scientists rush frantically around. In the chaos, the creature emits a low, reverberating hum. The hollow pits in its back emit a piercing frequency, glowing red as spiraling energy surges from within. The fabric of space begins to warp, tearing around the creature until, in an instant, it leaps into the rift and vanishes. The footage cuts to a handheld camera from the male scientist, the image shaking as he sprints, his breath labored. Male scientist's frantic shouts. Fuck, fuck, fuck. His voice quivers as he struggles to catch his breath. He glances back over his shoulder, the camera capturing the other scientists fleeing. Suddenly, a rift reopens above them, and the chronophage erupts from the void, descending upon them. It seizes a female scientist, its grotesque mouth stretching impossibly wide as it consumes her whole, her screams echoing through the lab. More desperate cries fill the air as it claims scientist after scientist. The male scientist turns, running until something slams into him from behind, sending him sprawling with a loud thud. Male scientist's startled cry. He shouts as the camera tumbles to the floor, settling on his terrified face. Looking back, his face pales further, and he begins to scream uncontrollably. Male scientist's horror. Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! He shouts, paralyzed with fear, his eyes locked on something beyond the camera's frame. A female scientist, who had dashed ahead, comes back to help him. Female scientist's urgent plea. Thomas, come on. She grabs his arm, helping him up as they stumble away together. Male scientist's hesitation. Will you wait, my camera? Female scientist's frustrated reply. Forget it. Just run. They vanish from sight, leaving the camera lying on the floor. A moment later, the severed head of another scientist rolls into view, eyes frozen wide in terror. The edge of the neck isn't bleeding but glitching, as if parts of his body were erased rather than torn. A shadow looms over the head, and the chronophage snarls before stomping on the camera. The video cuts out in an instant. 17th development logs, project temporal link, camera flickers on, revealing Dr. Anand sitting in front of the control panel. He looks haggard, his clothes disheveled, and his eyes heavy with exhaustion. Behind him, the dim light of the underground base casts long shadows on the walls. Dr. Anand's record. His voice is strained, but steady. The recording is clear, but the background noise is faintly disturbing, as if the facility itself is still unsettled. It's been 48 hours since that incident. We're hiding down here now, underground, Dr. Harper, myself, and the few survivors we have left. Some of the team. Some of them are still in shock. The reality of what happened hasn't fully set in for all of us. We've run out of food. No more supplies. We haven't seen any signs of it, the creature, the chronophage, since the last attack. But something still doesn't sit right. It's quiet, too quiet. The tremors in the air. The atmosphere itself feels different. It's like we're being watched. The walls feel like they're closing in. 17 of our team were killed by that thing. Their bodies, their screams are still fresh in my mind. No one was prepared for this. Dr. Anand's record. He pauses, visibly troubled by the memory. He swallows hard before continuing. We contacted the Ministry of Security, told them what happened, told them about the deaths, about it, but they didn't want to hear it. They've asked us to keep quiet, said we shouldn't let this leak. If this gets out, it could cause an international crisis, panic on a global scale. They told us to stay put and wait for instructions, but they haven't sent anyone to help us. They haven't given us any solution. They told us to keep it contained. But what does that mean? How do you contain something that can tear apart the fabric of time and space itself? We've been stuck here for days, no way out. No way to know what's really happening up there. But what I do know, what I can't shake, is that we have to act. And fast. Dr. Anand's record. He leans forward, the gravity of the situation sinking in. The camera shakes slightly as the room trembles once again, a reminder of the tension in the air. We've run out of food. The air's getting thin. The power's going out. We have no choice but to move out, risk it all, and find a way to stop this thing. We didn't see the chronophage anymore, but I can't help but think it's still out there, and it's not done with us. Dr. Harper and I had an argument earlier. She believes that if this thing is still Harris, we can make it remember. We can bring him back, somehow. But I don't know if that's possible. It's not Harris anymore. It's something else. Something fucking worse. A delirium. She's clinging to hope. But I can't. Not now. We don't have the luxury of hope anymore. Only survival. I greenlit the capture protocol. I told them we need to prioritize it, no matter the cost. If we don't stop it now, there won't be anyone left to stop anything. We can't risk the entire world being exposed to whatever it is now. I don't know how many of them are out there. I don't know if it's really Harris anymore, but I do know one thing. If it's even remotely aware of us, we're fucking dead. We tampered with the fabric of time. Now we have to pay for it. We have no choice but to keep going. We need to capture it. Destroy it. We have to end this before it ends us. The camera cuts briefly to static and then back to Dr. Anand, who's still staring into the distance as the screen flickers with the sound of distant alarms and chaos. A low rumbling shakes the walls once more. If anyone finds this, if there's even a chance for us to make it out, we must do whatever it takes. Dr. Anand stands up, turns toward the door, the camera jerking with his movement. As he approaches the exit, the camera suddenly glitches, distorting the view. The last sound is a low hum, followed by a sudden, eerie silence. This ends now. We can't wait any longer. Text appears on the screen in stark, white letters. To be continued.